let's move on to this because I think this is very interesting because we're going to have two different top fives here. We're going to do a top 5 most important players and top 5 best players, and there is a difference. So you're going to see a difference in these lists. Let's start out with the top 5 most important players for Texas to be super successful heading into next season. Let's start out with your number 5.
I love it. My number 5 is going to be Jordan Washington / Spencer Shannon, whoever gets that tight end spot, right? Whether it's Washington or Shannon, I think they're both really good athletes, really solid athletes, but we've seen the value in this offense of what a good quality tight end can be, especially with a young quarterback, right? You're gonna get tired of hearing me say this, but a solid tight end that can just sneak out and catch a 4-yard, 5-yard out is a young quarterback's best friend. We've seen it over and over again at Texas. And so the ability to step in and replace Gunnar Helm is going to be a big deal for whoever it is. There are people, whatever camp you're in, I'm not going to argue with you. We're not set tripping over tight ends. Washington or Shannon, whoever it is, I think it's going to be super important to the offense.
No, completely agree. When you look at Steve Sarkisian's offense, that is like the safety valve of the quarterback position to check down to. And then also they get explosive plays out of that because everyone else kind of gets lost on defense looking at the wide receivers. And we've seen this multiple times where the tight end slips out the backside of the formation and gets a catch. We saw that in the Arizona State game. Gunnar Helm did that, slipped out the backside, touchdown, first play. So I completely agree with that. Number 5, it's kind of interesting. You said Jordan Washington, Spencer Shannon, and then who else? I'm doing that with defensive tackle. I'm going Travis Shaw or any defensive tackle. Whoever starts for Texas is going to be a very important player because I don't know if we're going to have the depth, number 1, at that position. And I know we're not going to have the starting talent that we did. We're just not. You see this every year with college football, guys. Eventually, that position group that you're always worried about, it doesn't work out one of those years. And I think that's probably going to end up being this year for Texas. I don't think it's going to be, Alfred Collins is going to be a top 60 pick in the NFL draft. I don't think we're going to have that this year. I just don't. So whoever gets that starting role, can they be a C-plus guy? Because if they're a C-plus guy to me, they have the edge talent on this team to be able to make up for that. So that's my number 5.
Yeah, I'll talk more about that later. I have something similar thoughts, but I have it a little bit higher up my list just because how I feel specifically about that position and the defense. I actually have Arch Manning at number 4. He's probably going to be on your list too, I'm assuming. But I think the talent around him is enough where you could probably slot a lesser quarterback into the spot and be okay, right? The offensive line is going to be solid. The wide receivers are going to be solid, right? The running game should be better this year. So you could probably get by with Arch Manning being a little bit less than what we expect, right? The expectations are going to be very lofty. And if he doesn't come in and light the world on fire instantly, people are going to have thoughts about it. And that's just not, I don't think that's an accurate read on the situation. He is, in spite of all of the rigmarole and all the fireworks and all of that stuff, he is a first-year starter going into one of the toughest places, first week of the season, and then we'll play a full SEC season on top of that, right? So, again, quarterback is vital in this offense. Steve Sarkisian's the quarterback guy. It's a quarterback-friendly offense, but I think when I'm thinking of most important guys, he's got to be on the list, but I think he's probably lower simply because, with the other talent around him, he's going to be okay.
100%. I don't disagree with that at all. And he will be on my list just a little bit higher. Number 4 for me is Malik Muhammad. So we just talked about the cornerback situation and the uncertainty on one side. You cannot have two positions, especially at cornerback, where you're not certain. And freshman year, Malik Muhammad, we were very certain. He played very well for us. I believe he was all Big 12 freshman team. So really good. And I think PFF had him ranked as the second best cornerback overall in the Big 12. So he's a really good football player his freshman year. I think he took a step back. And, there's been that rumor of him transferring for a long period of time. And I'm hoping he doesn't decide to finally, I'm going to do it in the spring portal window. So it's going to be very interesting. But we need someone to step up because you lose Andrew Makuba back there at safety. And then you lose Jahdae Barron. Those are your leaders. This is the elder statesman in the cornerback room. So can he play like it, and then can he lead like it? So I think that's very important. I'll go ahead with my number 3 as well. I have Arch Manning here, and I agree with you. I think because of the talent surrounded by him, he doesn't need to be A-plus, best quarterback in the country, If he is that, there's a chance you see this Texas team go on a run similar to a Alabama team that Steve Sarkisian was the offense coordinator of 2020. Yep. That is the potential if Arch Manning is the best quarterback in the country. If he's like the 15th best quarterback in this country, they can still win the national championship because of the talent around him. So that's why I agree with you. I'm not going to have him number 1 or number 2 on this list for that reason, but he's still very important because, let's be honest here, the most important position in all of sports is the quarterback position. So that's why I have him number 3.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And again, not just in all of football, but like especially the style of football Texas is playing, right? You need to have a solid guy back there. So moving on, my number 3, this is why I didn't comment on your defensive tackle spot. I had Cole Brevard, whoever ends up playing nose tackle, right? Whoever plays in that 0-1 position on the defense. Because of the way this defense functions, you have to have a guy there, right? You have to have somebody that they don't have to be the Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat making big splashy plays in that scheme. But you need somebody who's going to occupy multiple blockers, right? Be able to sit in that A gap and take on a guard and a center to keep your linebackers free, right? This is a very linebacker play heavy defensive scheme. It just is what it is, right? And so being able to keep that free, especially because, spoilers for the next list, one of the best players on the team playing right behind him, right? You allow your linebackers, who are your big playmakers in the run game and on the edges in the pass, to play better and to make those big plays. And so whoever ends up playing that nose tackle, I have Cole Brevard, but it could be, again, one of the other transfers that came in, could be one of the other guys that has assigned in this recent recruiting class, right? Don't know who it's going to be, but whoever occupies that A gap is going to be huge for Texas.
100% agree with that. Number 2 for me is CJ Baxter. I think for this run game to get going, we need a running back like this, so he needs to be super healthy. And we've already heard there's going to be an emphasis of power run football. Well, guess what? You really don't have a power running back other than him and maybe Christian Clark on this team that can, honestly, we haven't seen Christian Clark, so I'm only going to say CJ Baxter at this point. And then Jared Gibson has fumble issues. So one guy that I've seen produce at the college level without fumble issues, CJ Baxter. So I think he's super important. He can also catch out of the backfield. I think he's the most complete back on this team, and I think he's one of the 2 most important players on this team. So hopefully he comes back healthy. Hopefully he comes back ready. I think we can get away with like the Trey Wisners and the other guys for, your average typical SEC game. When we go and play Mississippi State, that's going to be fine. But when you're playing Ohio State, when you're playing Georgia, when you're playing the teams that you need to win a national championship, as we saw, getting to the 1 of Ohio State doesn't mean you're going to score the football. You need someone like this to punch the football in. So I think that's why he's one of my 2 most important players for Texas.
Yeah, I think the 1 and 2 spots are going to be pretty boring for folks, and I apologize because I also had CJ Baxter at number 2, right? Based upon, 1, how this offense functions, we saw the offense sputter in some spaces because Texas was not able to run that zone scheme that Steve Sarkisian really likes to run. It is a pass-friendly offense, but he still wants to run play action. He still wants to pound the rock. That's how you control the game. In spite of all of the offense and the statistics and all of the wild and crazy things that Steve Sarkisian likes to do with the football, running the ball is still his bread and butter, that zone scheme. And you talked about it a couple weeks ago, Matthew, the Texas's inability to punch the ball in from the red zone, punch the ball in on short yardage. They were a terrible red zone team. Terrible, period, right? And we saw it bear itself out, like you mentioned, against Ohio State in the college football playoff. We saw it bear itself out in multiple different instances. But ultimately, having a running back like CJ Baxter, who is somewhat of a complete package, right? He can run, he's an every down back for Texas. And especially as Texas gets into the red zone and has to push on the pile, put themselves in the red zone, their ability to, or CJ Baxter's ability to be that guy for them is going to be a limiting or an enabling factor for the Texas offense moving forward. I think Matthew's having some connectivity issues, so I will jump in to my number 1, and then I will let him jump back in when he gets back on. My number 1 most important player for the 2025 season, Trevor Goosby. Anybody who's been on these live streams before, who's listened to the podcast before, probably saw this one coming. Trevor Goosby is my number 1 most important player, right? Because you're recycling most of your offensive line, the vast majority of it. You got a brand new quarterback. The most important point on the offensive line, left tackle. Trevor Gooseby seems to be the guy that's going to be playing that, replacing Kelvin Banks, who's going to be a first-round draft pick, right? So Trevor Gooseby is my most important player simply because young quarterback, new offensive line. Texas fans have gotten used to being able to set their clock to Kelvin Banks. And so Texas fans are going to need, the offense is going to need Trevor Gooseby to be, you don't have to be Kelvin Banks. Like, that is an unfair expectation. I just need you to be good and to keep Arch Manning from getting blasted on the backside.
It's funny because you were right. I have Trevor Gooseby number 1 as well. I completely agree with that. You've had someone at the left tackle position, you know who that's going to be for 3 years, and he's done a phenomenal job. I think 4 sacks in 3 years. So someone is going to have to slide into that and play to not that level, but play at a good level, something that is between a Kelvin Banks level and a level that we saw before Kelvin Banks. If Trevor Gooseby can be that, just between that is good enough, especially with, again, Arch Manning's mobility. That's going to allow the offensive line to be not as good, even though I actually have, in the opinion of, I think they're going to be better in certain aspects than the other offensive line was. So I completely agree with that. That does it for the top 5 most important players for Texas.